everyone, so today I'm going to do the part 2 of like my mini series that I'm filming, which is my March, April and May wrap up. I didn't get much reading done in those months because revision and work and life just got in the way. So the first book that I marked as read in March was The Wife of Bath's Prologue and Tale by Geoffrey Chaucer. Now, this was for school. I didn't enjoy this particularly. I just found it really tedious to read and it wasn't that enjoyable, and I can see the literary merit in it, but at the same time there wasn't the enjoyment that I would look for. I gave it 3 stars because I can see the literary merit in it and how it was a seminal novel, so it was the first of its kind. The Wife of Bath is a feminist before feminist was even a thing, like years, like I'm talking hundreds of years before feminism even was a thing. I can appreciate it for that, and like thinking back on her character, she was quite like good, like from a modern reader likes her, but I think the whole having to study this kind of ruined it for me because it was tedious. I was in a really bad state of mind like during that time as well at school. Like with school I was just so fed up, just wanting to be done with it, and I think looking back it was much better, but I don't know how quickly I would pick up another Chaucer, if I'm honest. I would much rather pick up another Shakespeare or 5. The next book I read I gave 5 stars to, but obviously if you've watched part 1 of this you'll know that as a House of Night one it's more a sentimental 5 stars because I love these books so much. They're just great fun reads. This is Hunted, which is the 5th one in the series of 12, so it's quite long, by PC and Kristen Cast. I don't know, I love this series. It's something that I read when I was a lot younger, and it kind of, it did kind of influence me, but it kind of told me a lot of things that I needed to hear around that time. This is a very sentimental 5 stars because I love this series so much. The third book that I read in March was Rook by Shannon Cameron. I started this like August the year before, which I know is kind of crazy, and I've only just like finished it. But I found the first half to be really quite slow. I couldn't get into it. I don't know if it was just the mood I was in. I wasn't enjoying it, so I put it down and then I picked it up. And from about halfway through it really picked up and really got interested and fast paced. So I don't know, I think this is one of those books you've got to stick with. I gave it 3 stars because I enjoyed the second half of it quite a lot. Like, had the entire thing been as fast paced and as interesting I would have given it higher. Yeah, it was quite enjoyable. Not my favourite, but at the same time I did like it. It was sort of in the middle. So the 4th book that I read in the month of March, which was an ebook which I had for review, was All the Rage by Courtney Summers. I really enjoyed this book. It's about a girl who has been raped, so it's not an easy read, and how the school doesn't believe her because it was the sheriff's son who did it to her, and like the school just doesn't believe her, and she's lost a lot of friends. A lot of people like hate her and pick on her, and it's about her sort of dealing with this, and then her ex-best friend goes missing and it goes from there. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend this book because it was just such a good easy read. Like, although it was difficult at times because it did cover the rape scenes, but at the same time it was necessary, and yeah, I would recommend this definitely. The 5th book that I read in the month of March, which was one I also started ages before and hadn't finished. I think March was a month for finishing things. I finished this one, Rook, and the next one as well. And that was On Chesil Beach by Ian McEwan. So this was a really short read that just took me forever to get through because I couldn't take to it. Like, the writing, McEwan's writing is absolutely beautiful. It's incredible, and for that I gave it 3 stars because the writing alone just brought this up for me. The storyline I couldn't take to. I didn't like the characters. There wasn't much of a storyline. It wasn't my kind of storyline, I'll have to say that. The plot line is very basic. It covers the story of a couple who have just got married, and it goes over their relationship and their memories of the relationship. I don't know, I couldn't take to the characters very much, and I don't really know. But I would recommend this for the writing, and because it's really short, despite the fact that it took me ages to read. I would go for one of his others first because now I'm a bit more hesitant, although I think like Atonement's meant to be amazing, so we'll see. The final book that I read in March was The Chimes by Anna Smale. This is a dystopian adult fiction which is set in a world which is controlled by music, so everybody talks, well, communicates using tunes rather than words. I reviewed this on my blog. This is one of those books I didn't enjoy massively whilst I was reading it, and at the same time I got a bit confused, and I have quite a good musical knowledge. I have played piano for years and years. I have that musical knowledge which was enough to understand this book. However, I would say that if you have no musical knowledge whatsoever, you will have to Google terms in this book, because certain adverbs, like quickly for example, are replaced by the musical terminology, so I think you would need to Google them if you have no musical knowledge. However, as I gave this 3.5 stars. Well, I don't know, in my blog post I can't remember exactly what I gave this, but I think it was around 3.5 stars. But this has stayed with me, and thinking back, it was actually really good. So I don't know, because it's one of those books which I think I will reread. I will definitely reread in the future. I will see how I feel about it then, because maybe it was just the state of mind I was in or whatever, because the writing at first I could not get on with, and I think that put me off. But definitely recommend picking this up if you're into adult dystopian or like music or whatever, because the premise is really, really interesting. But at the same time, I think you've got to be ready to sort of give it your attention, because otherwise you won't enjoy it, if I'm being really honest. As I said, it was one of those I didn't particularly enjoy at the time, but it has stayed with me, and I would definitely be picking it up in the future to see what I think then. Now on to what I read in the month of April. The first book that I read in April was SlaughterhouseFive by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut is now one of my all-time favourite writers. I've read Breakfast of Champions by him recently. I loved it as well, so I will be slowly working my way through his novels because they are amazing, and I just love his style. It's very satirical, very ironic, and sort of picks fun at everybody, but it's not outright. This is an anti-war novel, and it focuses on the bombing of Dresden. Billy Pilgrim, who is the main character, sort of gets dragged into the war, and he doesn't really know what's going on, he's just going along with it. It highlights the whole injustice of war, how people who have no desire to fight or have no emotional involvement get dragged into these things and end up being treated horribly because of it. And it's written in such a way that you don't get the feel like you'd expect it, hearing the title and thinking about it, that it would be a really difficult, gritty read, but it's not, because Billy Pilgrim is so like oblivious to everything. It's actually a really funny, light-hearted read, which you wouldn't expect. He does include a lot of like sci-fi, fantasy sort of aspects to it, so Billy Pilgrim sort of takes his mind off to another world. But I gave this 5 stars, absolutely loved it, love Vonnegut, and I will be reading everything he's written eventually. The next book that I finished, this was another school one, was one that I did not enjoy quite so much, and that is The Revenger's Tragedy. I didn't like this book. It's basically a rip-off of Hamlet, but more extreme. So like all the themes in Hamlet are in this, but like 10 times worse. I didn't like any of the characters really, like they were all just really horrible. If you want a revenge tragedy, I wouldn't pick this one up, I'd pick a Shakespeare one up 100%. I gave this 2 stars, didn't particularly enjoy it, and I doubt I'll be picking up another one from the Jacobean era. The following one I picked up, well finished, I think this was another finished one, it was Illuminated by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I gave this 3 stars, right? I know a lot of people love this book, and I am definitely in the minority in only giving it 3 stars. But I thought it was okay. I enjoyed it, but there were things I didn't like about it. I do love the format of this book, how it's all like documents and things like that. I just think that is so interesting. It wasn't a book I fell in love with. Now I'm moving on to my May wrap up, which I only read 2 books in because revision had like fully started because my exams were in June. So these 2 are contemporaries because they're easier to read, more of a relaxing, despite like the more difficult themes in the second one. The first one I read in May was Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. I adore Stephanie Perkins. These are amazing. I loved Stephanie Perkins, not like trilogy. I'm just gonna call it a trilogy. I think everybody should read these because they're just so lovely. I think the way she's worked the characters into each novel, especially them all at the end of this one, it's just so clever, and these stories are just so cute and adorable, and I love them. I give this 4.5 stars. The final book that I read was Faceless by Alyssa Steinmel. This is about a girl who, in an accident, severely burns her face, so she has to have a face transplant because it is the only option. And it's about how she has to deal with this new identity that she's not used to. There is a little bit of romance, not massive. I really liked this book. I would highly recommend it. It was such a quick read. I gave it 4 stars, and yeah. So that is all for my March, April, May wrap up. If you've read any of these books or have any opinions or recommendations, please leave them in the comments below and I would love to hear them. And I'll see you next time. Bye!